shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Tonight, we're jumping right into it. The file cabinet gave me something I almost wish it had kept. I slid open the drawer and there was a news clipping folded around a clear plastic sleeve. Inside the sleeve was a photograph of a rural Oklahoma gate in the dark. Gravel below it, fence post disappearing in the blackness, and clipped to the front was a single tight line. Dog-like, not a dog. And that is where we're going tonight. Because this one doesn't begin with a 100-year-old legend, doesn't begin with a campfire story or some old newspaper from 1897, or a whispered tale passed from porch to porch. It begins in March of 2026, near Blanco in Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma, where a woman was found so badly injured that even seasoned law enforcement came right out and said the scene did not look like anything they were used to seeing from a wild animal. Authorities publicly said she had undergone 4 surgeries and that she described hearing a deep growl and that the attacker was only described as dog-like, while evidence from the scene was sent off for DNA testing. What do you guys think? Because to me, that phrase is the whole doorway. Not dog, dog-like.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. Dog closes the door. Dog-like leaves it standing open in the dark.
It does, doesn't it? That's properly unsettling, because it sounds close enough to be familiar, but not close enough to be comforting.
Exactly, and once you get a growl in the dark, a rural road, severe injuries, and a witness who can only describe the thing by resemblance, not certainty, you're already standing in the kind of story that folklore loves to move into.
And that's where this gets creepy in a hurry, because we're not starting with myth tonight. We're starting with a real emergency, a real woman, a real investigation. And then we follow the trail out into that strange borderland where real fear starts sounding like an old monster story.
So let's unlatch the gate and step into it. Matt, take it away.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson. Produced by Juniper Ravenwood. With Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Well, first off, Juniper, thanks for digging into the file cabinet, pulling out something that already feels wrong before you even read the first line, because this case has that feeling on it. It has the weight of something real, but it also has that fog around the edges that keeps it from settling into a neat answer. Here's the factual spine of it. On March 29th of this year, Alicia Maxey, a 38-year-old Oklahoma mother, was found severely injured near Blanco in rural Pittsburgh County. Public reporting said she was discovered about an hour later by a homeowner who was also an EMT, who started life-saving measures until she could be airlifted to the Tulsa hospital. By the time the story hit local and national coverage, authorities were saying she had already undergone 4 surgeries, and Sheriff Frankie McClendon said that in 38 years he had never seen injuries from a wild animal to that extent. Now just stop there for a second, because that alone is enough to make you lean forward. When a sheriff with nearly 4 decades behind him sounds shaken, that gets your attention. And when investigators don't come out immediately and say, "We know exactly what did this," that opens up a whole different kind of dread. Because the first public explanation wasn't certainty. It was a list of possibilities. Dog, bear, mountain lion. Evidence, including ripped clothing, was sent for DNA testing. As of the latest public reports I could find, dated April 8th and 9th, the animal still wasn't publicly identified. And that is where this case starts breathing like a shadow frequency story. because Alicia's surviving description, relayed through reporting, didn't lock the thing down. She remembered pulling up to the gate, hearing a deep growl, and then being hit. Her sister-in-law said Alicia described it as dog-like, but did not say with certainty that it was a dog. That may sound like a small wording difference, but it really isn't. In cases like this, the smallest gap in language becomes the whole haunted hallway. Dog is a category. Dog-like is a silhouette. Dog-like is the shape you reach for when what you saw moved too fast, hit too hard, or felt just wrong enough that your mind never fully settled on a name for it. And I've got an item from the file right here. It's a printed copy of that local report, clipped and highlighted. I'm holding the page, and there are 2 lines marked in yellow. One is the sheriff's quote about never seeing injuries like that in 38 years. The other is the line, she says it was dog-like, but she didn't say it was certainly a dog. That's the hinge right there. That is the moment this stops sounding like just another attack report and starts sounding like a threshold story. Because human beings have always had a category for the wrong kind of hound. Not just a dangerous dog, not just a predator. I mean the thing at the roadside that looks almost familiar until it doesn't. The thing seen at the edge of fields and lanes and burial places and crossroads. In old folklore, especially in Britain, you get these black dog and goblin hound traditions. Creatures like the Barghest, a monstrous night roaming dog, and the broader hellhound motif, the dog standing at the threshold between worlds, death, or doom. I'm not saying that's what attacked this woman. I'm saying the human imagination already has very old shelves built for exactly this kind of fear. And rural Oklahoma is the kind of place where that old machinery can start turning on its own. Long fence lines, tree cover, isolated gates, dark yards, the sense that the land has room to keep secrets. Even without saying the word cryptid, you can feel how quickly a real event like this can slip into that language. A growl in the dark, a sudden impact, a witness who survives but can only leave behind an approximate shape. That is how legends get their first breath, not from proof, but from incomplete recognition. And what makes this case stronger, not weaker, is that it doesn't over-explain itself. Nobody in the actual reporting is claiming Hellhound. Nobody official is claiming Dogman. Nobody is saying the woods opened and something impossible stepped through. What they are saying is a woman was gravely injured. The description was limited. The injuries were severe enough to shock experienced officials, and the animal was not immediately identified. That restraint is exactly why the case carries so much atmosphere. The unknown stays unknown just long enough for your mind to start filling in the dark by itself. And I'll tell you what gets me the most. It's the gate. The detail of her pulling up to a gate before hearing the growl. I don't know why that lands so hard, but it does. Maybe because gates are border places. They're literal thresholds. You're not fully in one space and not fully out of the other. Folklore loves thresholds. Hellhound stories love thresholds. The old monstrous hounds of story are always near crossings, edges, boundaries, doorways, roads where something enters your world from just outside it. And in this case, whether the answer proves ordinary or not, the emotional structure is already there. A woman stops at the threshold, hears the growl, and something hits from the dark. So in the first half of this story, that is where I want to leave it. Not with a solution, but with the outline. Rural Oklahoma, March 2026. A documented attack. A deep growl. A dog-like thing in the dark. And a question that opens wider the longer you stare at it. Because sometimes the scariest shape is the one your mind almost recognizes. And when all you get is resemblance instead of certainty, the dark has a lot more room to work.
That's what makes it cling to you. It sounds close to ordinary, but not close enough.
Yeah, and that's the nasty bit, isn't it? It feels as though the story's still deciding what it wants to be.
And in the second half, that's where we go deeper into the old hounds of folklore, the modern dogman frame, and the one rational crack in the case that somehow makes it eerier, not safer. Juniper, over to you for the break.
So far, we've got a real Oklahoma case file, a witness description that only gets stranger the more you sit with it, and a dark little threshold at a gate that feels like it belongs in a legend already. I'm guessing some of you are thinking, come on, was this just a dog? And some of you are probably already halfway to Hellhound. Chris, step into the static for a sec.
Cheers, June. I'll be honest, that dog-like bit is the sort of detail that crawls under your skin, because it's so close to ordinary and still not quite right. While you're listening, do us a favour and hit like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using. Hello, it really helps the algorithms find the rest of the night people. You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast directories. Head over to shadowfrequencypodcast.com for every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to all the platforms. You can also support the show by buying us a coffee there and send us an email or voice message through the website. Yours might end up on a future episode. All right then, back into the fog. Juniper?
Time to fire up the spectral cosmic message materializer. Let's flip the switches. Let's see what the old glowing contraption coughs up tonight. Ah, there it is. Little envelope tumbling out of the static like it got lost between worlds with the edges sin and the handwriting's crooked.
From the void.
I seem to having just hissed when I opened it. Let's unfold it, though, and see what our listener sent drifting through the dark. This one comes from Polly in Idaho. Says, hey, Matt, Juniper, and Chris. I usually listen late at night on Apple Podcasts while I'm at my kitchen table working on watercolor paintings after the house finally goes quiet. Your show has kind of become my strange little studio companion. I especially love the haunting episodes, missing time stories, and anything involving weird animal encounters that feel like they might have stepped out of old folklore. There's something about hearing those stories when the whole house is still that makes them hit differently. Thanks for keeping the nights interesting and just the right amount of creepy. Keep the vines whispering. Polly in Idaho. Polly, there's a fantastic sign-off. Keep the pines whispering. Absolutely belongs in this cabinet somewhere. And thank you for listening. If you want to send us your own story, email, or late-night note from the edge of the map, hit us up at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. Matt, let's get back into it.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper. And Polly, that was excellent. There's something very on brand about watercolor painting in the quiet while listening to stories about things with the wrong shape in the dark. This is where this case gets especially shadow frequency. Isn't that it proves a monster? It's that it lands right on top of monster architecture that's already been with us a very long time. Once a witness says the thing was dog-like, once you add a growl, a sudden violent attack, and uncertainty after the fact, you're moving into the same emotional territory that fed old hound legends for centuries. The Barghest in northern England folklore was described as a monstrous night-roaming dog with huge teeth and claws, and the broader Hellhound tradition centers on a fearsome dog at the threshold, a guardian, pursuer, or omen linked to the underworld and border places. Again, I'm not presenting those as explanations. I'm saying those shelves in the human mind were already built long before this Oklahoma case ever happened. And in the modern American version of that fear, the label people reach for is often Dogman. That word carries a whole freight train of imagery now. A canine thing that's too big, too upright, too aware, too human around the edges. In plain dictionary terms, a cryptid is an animal claimed to exist but never proven to exist, which is exactly why these cases grip people so hard. They sit in that live wire space between eyewitness terror and unresolved evidence. What matters here isn't proving Dogman. What matters is watching how a real event with incomplete identification starts to acquire the atmosphere that modern cryptid culture instantly recognizes. And I've got another item here from the file. This time it's not a news clipping, but a stack of wildlife printouts. One is from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation on black bears, and another is their mountain lion material. And this is where I give you the one rational fracture in the story, the one place where the file has to be tested. Oklahoma officials say black bear sightings are possible anywhere in the eastern half of the state, and that southeastern Oklahoma's bear population is growing. The department also says Oklahoma has confirmed mountain lion sightings since 2002 and even confirmed 2 separate mountain lions with kittens in 2024. So yeah, an ordinary animal under bad conditions remains possible. And the family's early assumption, according to reporting, was that a dog may have been responsible. But here's why that doesn't flatten the mystery for me. It actually sharpens it. Because when the ordinary explanation is still on the table and the story still feels this uncanny, that means the atmosphere is coming from somewhere real. Not from embellishment, not from bad storytelling, from the structure of the event itself. A woman survives an attack but cannot identify the animal with certainty. The injuries are severe enough that the sheriff publicly says he's never seen anything like it from a wild animal in 38 years. Officials don't dismiss it on the spot, they start testing evidence. And the public description that survives is not bear or cat or dog, it's dog-like. That doesn't prove the supernatural, but it does explain why the story already feels haunted before the investigation is even over. And this is where place matters again. Eastern and southeastern Oklahoma are not abstract map points. They are the kind of country where wildlife is real, where the dark is thick, where roads and yards and timber edges can go quiet in a way cities no longer understand. Oklahoma wildlife officials have had to publish real guidance for black bear encounters because sightings are not fantasy there. Part of Pittsburgh County even falls within the state bear's season zone east of US 69. That doesn't mean a bear did this. It means the land itself carries a perfectly uncomfortable mix of realism and dread, enough real predator presence to make officials cautious, and enough uncertainty at night to make every description feel a little unfinished. And unfinished is the key word, because unresolved cases don't just leave facts behind, they leave emotional residue. They leave phrases. They leave images. They leave one sentence that echoes longer than the rest. And in this case, that sentence is, it was dog-like. That's how folklore gets seeded in real time. Not with a perfect monster description, with a surviving witness who can only hand you an outline. With authorities who are still checking the evidence. With a community that suddenly has to imagine what might be moving through the dark just beyond the fence. That is how a real attack becomes more than a crime blotter item. It becomes a story that travels, and if you want the most chilling version of the case, it may not even require a supernatural answer. Maybe the final explanation does come back ordinary. Maybe the DNA says dog. Maybe it says bear. Maybe it says mountain lion. But even then, the legend making has already started, because ordinary animals don't usually enter public memory through phrases like this. They enter through certainty. This one entered through resemblance, through a growl, through impact. Through a survivor trying to name something in the dark and stopping just short of a clean answer. And that, to me, is the final turn in the file. What if the cryptid angle is not about proving that something impossible attacked in Oklahoma? What if it's about catching the exact moment a real event crosses the threshold into folklore? Because as of April 9th, in the public reporting, the animal remained unidentified. The evidence was still being tested. The woman was still recovering from catastrophic injuries. And somewhere in that gap between evidence and certainty, the old hounds are already pacing. Sometimes the legend doesn't come after the case. Sometimes you can hear it forming while the case is still open.
Yeah, and that's the bit that stays with you. Even if it turns out to be something ordinary, the story's already grown teeth.
That is nasty in the best possible way, because it means the fear gets there before the answer does.
Exactly, and until that answer arrives, the shape in the dark stays just loose enough to keep moving. Juniper, take us home.
Tonight's case started with a real Oklahoma attack and ended in that strange place where documented events brush up against very old fears. A growl in the dark, a dog-like shape, a survivor, an open question. Thanks for joining us on episode 316 of The Shadow Frequency. If you've got a strange story of your own or just want to say hello from wherever you listen, send us an email at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. You can also find us at shadowfrequencypodcast.com for episodes, the blog, merchandise, show notes, and more. We'll be back soon with another strange chase from the edge of the unexplained. You guys want to say goodnight?
Good night, everybody. Keep your eyes on the fence line.
Night, all. And maybe don't trust every growl you can't place.
Sleep tight, keep these signals strange, and we'll see you next time in the shadows.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.